Good evening and welcome to Pray Vote Stand. I'm your host, Tony Perkins. Tonight, is it the American Families Plan or the plan to take over American families? President Joe Biden's new early childhood proposal suggests that the same people who made a mess of your health care should be put in charge of your child care too. What does his party of big government radicals have in mind? We'll talk to a panel of experts about the left's real reason for wanting to babysit your toddlers. Then, just how much is this real-life nanny state going to cost us? And are the costs limited to dollars and cents? The Heritage Foundation's Charmaine Yost is here to tell us what the social science says about how children fare when the state tries to fill a parent's shoes. And later in the program, Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler drops by to explain the conservative counterproposal to more spending, more indoctrination, and more of the government knows best thinking from the left. But first, moms and dads are trying to get their kids away from public schools, at least most of them. They're not wanting to enroll them any sooner. Under Biden's plan, the liberal brainwashing on sex education, gender identity, Marxism, and critical race theory would start even earlier. Now, if you've ever wondered what it would be like to have AOC raising your kids, this program is the closest you'll get.
But the rest of the world's caught up to us. The rest of the world's caught up to us. They're not waiting. And 12 years is no longer enough to compete with the world in the 21st century and lead the 21st century. That's why my American Families Plan guarantees 4 additional years of public education for every person in America, starting as early as we can.
The government can't even do the jobs it has. Now we want to add child rearing to the list? Well, according to surveys, we don't. As usual, the left is trying to force this program on parents without stopping to ask if they really want it. Susan Rice, head of Mr. Biden's Domestic Policy Council, revealed an awful lot when she told the New York Times, quote, "We want parents to be in the workforce, especially mothers. We want," she said, not parents want. Now, she and her party may think the workforce is more important than investing in your children, but very few other Americans actually agree. Democrats are so busy imposing their views on everyone that they don't know, or quite frankly, don't care, that they'd be pouring money into parents' least favorite option. What families want isn't woke government babysitters. It's the ability to keep more of their own money and have more flexibility to make their own decisions. In fact, the only people who actually support paid full-time childcare, research shows, are wealthy couples who both work and don't have kids. The reality is, this isn't about helping parents. It's about the left helping themselves to our children's formative years. And to get more families on board, the president is trying to bribe parents into giving up the most significant job they'll ever have by dangling a few $1,000s in childcare subsidies in front of them. But don't think for a second that Democrats are going to give you money to spend on your child to send them to the daycare of your choice. It'll be a government-approved facility that meets their radical standards, meaning it will probably exclude churches and other religious options with moral or biblical views. It's disgusting, Senator Marsha Blackburn says.
What this would do is incentivize women to rely on the federal government to organize their lives. This is something that favors the urban, it favors the rich, it favors the elitist, it favors those that want power and control over every single minute of your day. It is disgusting.
And you know what else is disgusting? The price tag. We're talking about a proposal that, believe it or not, costs more than Joe Biden's 2022 budget for the entire government. Between the universal pre-K, free college, daycare, nutrition programs, and more, this plan, which experts now say will cost $900 billion more than the president told us, is on track to be the most expensive federal takeover ever. And if it's anything like the last experiment in government daycare, which was called Head Start, We'll be harming more kids than we help. Even Barack Obama's administration admitted that after 48 years and 180 billion taxpayer dollars, their early education program offered little or no benefit for children. In fact, in some instances, it even had negative effects. So, why would anyone want to expand an idea that wasn't just a failure by Washington standards, but by children's? Simple. Because the left's future all hinges on indoctrinating kids and indoctrinating them early. Give me a child until he is 7, Aristotle said, and I will show you the man. The communists, from the Soviets to the Chinese, understood that. So does the Democratic Party. As George Barna has pointed out for years, a person's worldview starts developing as early as 15 months and is almost completely formed by the age of 13. Now, we may refine it or figure out how to implement it, but those early childhood years are absolutely crucial. And that's what makes this proposal so dangerous.
It's imperative that we go back to the biblical perspective on this, which is that it's a parent's chief responsibility in life to make sure that their child's worldview is intentionally and strategically developed in concert with God's principles and command.
To turn our children over to strangers who will indoctrinate them with a government perspective is the antithesis of what God instructed us to do. We've already seen what can happen when our kids are under the care of a system that's hostile to a biblical worldview. So trust me, when I say that this ought to be an incredibly alarming prospect for any Christian parent, it absolutely is. Deuteronomy 6 says our most sacred responsibility as parents is to raise children who love and embrace biblical truth. Today, that mandate is under attack. We need to pray more fervently than ever for a new era of boldness and a new era of intentionality on behalf of parents to raise up their children as spiritual champions. The next generation can save or sink a nation. Which one it is depends upon us. Let's begin our time together tonight doing just that. Pray for our children, praying for the parents of America, and praying for our nation's future. Father, we thank you for our time together tonight. Thank you that via technology, we can speak to one another. Lord, we can talk about what is happening, but more importantly, we can pray about what is happening in our nation. And Lord, we are troubled by the policies we see coming out of Washington, D.C., and the attack, the effort to usurp the role of parents, Lord, that you gave to those parents. You didn't instruct government to raise up children in the way that they should go. You told parents to. And so, Father, on behalf of the parents of this nation, we plead with you, Lord, to stir within us as parents, Lord, a sense of responsibility and a passion to raise our children to know you, to love you, and to serve you. And Lord, turn the hearts of the children back to the parents. And Lord, may you return this nation to the right track, that we would indeed walk in the ways of righteousness, honoring those institutions, Lord, that you have established long ago. Now be with our conversation tonight. I pray that you would guide our words. May they be pleasing to you. And Lord, may those who listen be encouraged, may they be edified, and may they be challenged. We pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen. What do parents, and moms especially, really want? Well, my next guest, well, they ought to know. Joy Pullman, the award-winning executive editor at The Federalist, has 6 children. And FRC's Mary Zock who is also expecting. Both women are experts in the field of education, and together they're here to break down what this proposal is really about. Joy, Mary, welcome to Pray Vote Stand.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Joy, I want to start with you. When you look at the president's plan, he said, this is what women want. Is this what women want? Is this what mothers want?
The short answer really is no, except for, as you mentioned earlier, a small segment of childless upper class women. What mothers and families overall really want is to be able to spend more time with their kids and to be able to, especially in the younger years of children's lives, to focus more of their energies on them. The majority of women who are in the workforce, the mothers who are in the workforce, really say that they wish they could work fewer hours, less than they are currently working. So, the women who are in the workforce really are feeling more of an economic pressure to be taking them away from their children, and they would really rather be spending and matching up with what the social science and the research says for what is best as children. They really do want to invest their energies and their time predominantly on their children. All women don't want to stay home full time, but the majority of women, some 3/4, want to work part-time or less when they're mothers, especially of small children.
Mary, let me ask you about that. Is this something that's one size fits all, that every program, every opportunity is the same for every mother?
It certainly isn't. And I think, as every mom could tell you, that every child she bears is different. The plan for every child for the future has to look different as well. And parents need to be the ones making the decisions about that plan, not the government. It's parents who know their child best, and it's parents who know what their child needs best. And we've seen when the government tries to institute a one-size-fits-all plan for children, it just doesn't work. And so this plan is not what's best for families, and it's certainly not what's best for children or what parents want.
I want to play a clip of Kelsey Bowler with the Independent Women's Forum, who was talking about this plan. I would get both of you to comment on this.
But the truth of the matter is that the number one thing that children need at these early ages is a loving mom, the support of their parents. And what the Biden administration and really all of the left wants to do is push moms to give everything they have to the workforce and then pawn off their children to these government-run daycare facilities. And the sad thing is, children don't win from this. Children win when women and working moms have flexible work arrangements that enable them to decide for themselves what type of childcare arrangements work for them and their families.
Joy, you touched on this when you say it might not be what's best for the mom, but the child. Where do the children factor in the Biden plan?
Well, really, it seems that in this plan, children are treated as an obstacle to having more units of economic production, to pushing women out from, again, investing in really what I think is the point of an economy, is to have strong families, because families are the bedrock unit of a healthy society. So if you don't have anyone there doing that daily mothering work of managing children's emotions, helping teach them social graces and personal skills and all of those things that mothers do moment by moment, all day long, every day, that really constitute the meaning in our jobs. If you don't have mothers present for the children, doing that for them when they need it, which can't be stuffed into an hour or two between work, school, and bedtime. It's much, much more needed than that for little children. So really the children's needs, as well as, our long-term nation's financial and just personal well-being, are really being short-sighted and pushed aside and shoved into, basically, these boxes away from the homes where children really do thrive. And so we know from common sense and research that children really need that very tender personal attention that mothers and fathers provide to them, and that a home with that attention to them is the very best environment for them to be growing up to be contributing members of society. So this plan really, really tries to destroy that fundamental building block that is the center and the point of a society in the first place.
I want to get you to comment on something else. Joy, I mentioned earlier, Susan Rice, who heads up the president's domestic policy, said that, we want parents to be in the workforce, especially mothers. Now, and so they're pushing this extremely costly program, this one size fits all. When you look back on the Trump administration, and basically focused on opportunity, cutting taxes, increasing economic activity. If I'm not mistaken, more women entered the workforce during the Trump administration based on their own negotiated terms with their employers, and the government wasn't involved.
Right. And obviously, I am a working mother, but for me, as Kelsey was talking about, my employment is highly flexible. So that allows me to really, I condense a lot of my work into the times when my kids are sleeping, after school, before they wake up. And so that allows me to provide, what I believe is the best care for them, the attention that they need when they're around, when they're awake out of their naps, out of school. And again, the majority of mothers are highly sensitive to and very much aware of that. And many women are really pushed into economic, production, when what they would really rather do is focus their attentions on their family if they have, a stable, decent husband available to focus on, providing the financial stability that a family needs also. So obviously, God made moms and dads to create children physically together, and he made moms and dads to work together in concert, to provide for and protect and provide the best environment for children. So really, this plan really kind of separates parents and children from each other, when really the most holistic and the best policy really thinks about them as they are an entire unit, a family, a holistic grouping of people who aren't just, pieces to be picked up and stuffed into different rooms, but really need to be thought of, as a cohesive unit that work together and have different functions for the best, needs of all of them, as well as therefore for the rest of society. Because when families are happy and healthy, then all the rest of us have a good country to live in. We're happy, it just gets better for everyone when you really focus on families first.
And I think that's the track America was on during the economic growth period of the Trump administration. Again, not through a mandated government program, but just through economic activity, which actually gave women and men, all employees, greater leverage in negotiating the terms because workers were needed. And I think that helped women in the workforce. Mary, I want to ask you about the content. I'm sure there's got to be some concern about who's going to set the standards for this early childhood education, this daycare training. I'm certain that the left is not going to miss the opportunity to fill the heads of these children with their ideas.
Right. Just as you said, we've seen this movie before, and it's called The Public School System. And during COVID, parents got a front row seat to see what was being taught to their children and how they were being indoctrinated. We saw explicit sex education. We saw gender theory. We saw the pushing of critical race theory. And these are all points that the left is all too ready to instill in children. And they should not be doing that at all, but they certainly should not be doing that in the child's most formative years, when the mother and father are the ones who should be forming their children, who should be molding them into wonderful young men and women and boys and girls who will love and serve God.
So, final thought, Joy, what do parents need to be doing right now in response to this?
Well, I think they could communicate to their members of Congress that they really don't support proposals that take family members away from each other, and as well as pushing, women to act like men, when really we need women and men to act again together, but often having different emphases for the best, specializing in different aspects of family life in order to provide all of the things that a child needs, the income and the food on the table, as well as that nurturing and that attention. And just biologically speaking and practically speaking, for most families, that's going to be more mothers investing in home and more fathers investing in the workplace. So for that, we need to have a good, strong economy so that the fathers can provide for the family, with decent wages and opportunities for advancement, as well as we need, more opportunities for women to have flexible and new opportunities to get back into the workforce after their children are growing. So just more of a creative, open economy. And I also really think that parents need to be aware that the messages that they're getting from corporate media, from other sources about that really degrade and shame women for doing what we love and what our bodies are made to do and taking care of our kids. Just ignore that and really tune into sources that affirm the goodness of loving children, of paying attention to them, and of really and of not putting money first and not putting career advancement first, but really putting other people first in service to them, as in obviously as our faith teaches us to do. That's really the right way to live, and it's the way that makes people happiest and a society happiest in the long run.
That kind of, I wanted to ask one more question. You kind of answered it. And as a mother of six, there's, you've had and you're very successful in what you do. So you've had the joy of being a mom, you've had the joy of being successful in the workforce. Those new moms that are struggling to make that decision, any words of advice?
Oh, I have a huge heart for this because that was me. I was very reluctant to have kids. I was focused on a career, and my children have completely transformed my attitude about this. So it's because of my children teaching me about these deep truths, and as well as my husband really affirming how much, the importance of me performing, the motherly role for them and being the nurturing person that they need. So it's really been, something that I've grown in learning. And I just encourage women to be open to that affirmation of who you are and seek to learn more about it and let your babies lead you. You love your baby. It's okay and it's good to love your baby. Your baby needs you. You want to be with your baby. If you feel awkward and uncomfortable away from your baby, these are good signals from nature, from God, that are telling you, giving you hints and directions about how to focus your energies. And I just want to tell you that, absolutely, you will never regret of investing your attention on your children. They are much more important than money. They are much more important than careers. And while, women like me who have very fancy titles, it looks great, but honestly, my most meaningful, rewarding thing in my life is my children, and they're much more important than that. When I'm 50, 60, 70 years old, I fully expect for that to be the most important thing that I've done with my life. So again, don't, get caught up with this worldly, consumption, focus on money, really consider what are your true priorities in life. Obviously, putting food on the table isn't so hard that you need to sacrifice your own and your children's happiness for that.
So well said. And my wife would say amen to that, as she raised our 5 children, taught them at home, and also worked at the same time. Mary, I'm going to ask you, if you wouldn't mind, to close us out and pray for the mothers of America. Pray for the women that are, as we were just talking about, maybe struggling with this decision, but also praying that they would have the wisdom to make the right choice for their families.
Thank you so much, Tony. Dear God, we thank you for bringing us here today. Thank you for the good work of Family Research Council. Thank you for the gift of life and for the gift of mothers. We've just celebrated Mother's Day, oh God, and we know the great gift that motherhood is. Help all women who are pregnant. Help all women who are raising children. Help all women who wish to be pregnant. And those who are struggling with whether or not that is something in their future. Please grant all those women the wisdom and the courage to put their children and their marriages first in their life. Please help all women to be focused on you and on what is best for their child, which is drawing them closer and closer to you. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Mary, Joy, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks so much for having me.
My next certainly knows her way around education policy. Dr. Charmaine Yost is vice president at the Heritage Foundation, where she landed after her time in the Donald Trump administration over at the Health and Human Services. She's a familiar face at FRC, where she served twice. Most recently, as our vice president of communications, her first tour of duty here included a thoughtful study of, guess what? The childcare issue, which culminated in her book, Mother in the Middle. Charmaine is a mom of 5 herself, and if that isn't enough experience, her doctorate at UVA was on parental leave, which is a key feature of the Biden plan. Charmaine, welcome to Pray Vote Stand, and thanks for being with us.
Oh, Tony, this is a lot of fun. It feels like coming home. Good to see you.
Well, I thank you for joining us. And it, it's like deja vu. I mean, you were back working on this. This was a big push of Hillary Clinton. Um, all eyes were on it. It's like they discovered something new, but it's not new.
Right, exactly. It's really troubling. You and I know across the board on a whole host of issues that the left is trying to use the pandemic to ram through their wish list of favorite liberal leftist programs. And that's exactly what's going on with the education proposals. One of the things that's particularly troubling, not getting enough attention, is that the amount of money that they're asking for, Tony, right now amounts to 10 times the annual budget of the existing budget of the Department of Education. This defines the meaning of boondoggle. They're just using this crisis time to really get more money and more funding, more permanent long-term funding for their wish list.
And what that does when you use these huge numbers, we're talking over $6 trillion in programs that he's been promoting just in the first 3 months. People's eyes begin to glaze over, and before you know it, we're into tens and 15 and $20 trillion, and nobody thinks about it.
Right, exactly. The problem is they haven't even spent the money that they appropriated in the first coronavirus bill, and yet now he's coming back and he's larding up this so-called American Families Plan. Tony, I think it's important for your listeners to know some of the data about this. Back in 1964, when Lyndon Johnson first inaugurated the Great Society, he said that he was going to use education to eradicate child poverty. And then there became this massive expansion in federal involvement in education. We've since then spent over $2 trillion on K through 12 education. And you know what's happened to the achievement levels? If you look at all of the data, all of the different metrics, it looks like this. It's been completely flat. You would think with that kind of spending, we would actually see some results for American kids. There is one metric, though, that has skyrocketed. And you want to know what that is? It won't surprise you at all. It is the amount of spending being done for administrators, for school administrators. So we're spending a lot of money and it's not getting to kids. And I'm here to tell you that's exactly the same pattern we're going to see with this new spending that they want to do.
I mentioned Hillary Clinton, and her saying is it takes a village. What she was promoting back in the 90s. I've got a clip of Joe Biden talking about this because he's not far away from the village. Here's what the president had to say.
I often said that children are the kite strings that keep our national ambitions aloft. We say all those kids, well, they're all our children. They're all our children.
There are children. They're my children. They're not yours.
It's really troubling whenever you hear things like that. And it's like they're so close to the truth. Like you and I, we deeply believe in the extended family and the importance of community. That's the bedrock of American community. But what he's getting at there is kind of this communal authority and the idea that somehow they get to make decisions about American kids. And this is why we keep coming back to saying, if you really want to see an improvement in educational attainment and achievement for kids, you're going to empower parents to be making decisions about where and how their kids are getting education. I think it's particularly interesting, but also deeply troubling when you look at the fact that across this country, most public schools have been closed over the last year, but private schools have largely been open. And Tony, what's concerning about that is you're seeing parents vote with their feet, right? They wanted their kids to be able to be in school and to be getting direct education. And we're going to be seeing an increase in the gap between kids who are able to be in school and kids who are not. And it really does come down to empowering parents to make decisions for their own kids.
Charmaine, let me ask you the question about how this differs from Head Start. I mean, we had during the Obama administration, they looked back on nearly 5 decades of Head Start and said it was a failure. So how does this differ?
Tony, I am so glad you asked about that because this is something that really is very, very troubling when you hear the left talking about their plans for expanding K through 12 education and doing universal pre-K. And they talk about, and it's really, really questionable when they say that the research shows that it helps kids. In actual fact, the research that they're citing has been debunked. It's never been able to be replicated. It was the one study that they cite was a very small study, and it was very in a very specific kind of environment. They've never been able to replicate it. They haven't been able to scale it, and yet they're taking that and extrapolating it and saying they're going to do it on a mass scale for American kids. You and I both know that is not the way to go, and in fact, it's not really what American parents are saying that they want. You heard from mothers earlier in the program about how much American women want to be with their kids. When you look at the polling data, talking to American women, even American women who are employed full time, they reply that they're looking for flexibility and more options in the workplace. And that's not by expanding paid family leave, by expanding K through 12 into full-time preschool for every American child. That's not increasing flexibility. It is going with government decisions about what's best for American parents instead of enabling them to make their own decisions.
There are two many outcomes we can measure, but two in particular that I think you've looked at in the past, and I want you to comment on. I mean, you've touched on the bonding, the relationship between parent and child, and how important that is, and how it'll be deprived. I mean, we talked earlier about the worldview of children being formulated between really 15 months and almost completed by the age of 13. I mean, we're basically farming out kids if we go along with this government plan that entire time. But let's talk about the outcomes. The president says we need to add 4 more years of education to our kids to be competitive internationally, 2 on the front end, 2 on the back end. I would ask the question, what have they done with the 12 years that they've had?
Oh, absolutely. And, let's underscore the point. You referenced this briefly earlier, so let me bring it back and put a fine point on it. They don't have any research to show that expanding to universal pre-K is going to get the outcomes that they want. And in fact, you mentioned this, there is some evidence to show that it can be very negative. And this doesn't surprise us at all when we know about the data about how important it is for kids to get one-on-one time with their parents. And so I'm very troubled for them to be so loose and fast with the data and to be inaccurately representing it in order to push through their own agenda. So that's very troubling. And going to your point about, when we're not seeing any kind of improvement in any of the metrics for how the current public school system is doing, why we should expand their reach is there's just not a case for it.
Unless, of course, we prefer that our children be indoctrinated at a younger age.
Well, that's another problem. I think that it is really kind of interesting with so many parents now having the ability to have their kids right in the next room, and they're able to listen to what kind of instruction they're getting. We're really troubled by the reports that we're getting of teachers trying to purposefully hide curriculum from parents. Here's the thing, Tony, we like to talk about lots of different options, whether it's private school or homeschool for American kids, and we think American parents need more choice. But at the end of the day, over 90% of American kids are still in the public school system, and we absolutely have to insist on transparency so that American parents know what it is that their kids are being taught. And after this past year of American parents getting to hear it and see it more close at home, they're really troubled, and particularly when they're getting pushback from their public schools when they want to have more information about what it is their kids are being taught.
So, Charmaine Yost, final question for you. Given all of that, what should parents be doing right now?
Well, they need to be be really being in touch with their school system. We have been talking a lot about encouraging parents to get on their school board, get involved, and really exercise your voice. We had a situation here nearby where I live in Northern Virginia, where there was this survey sent out about anti-racism training, and parents were very troubled by the nature of some of the questions and started pushing back and asking questions, and come to find out some of the parents got a response saying, well, the school board hadn't actually seen that before it went out. This is the kind of thing that parents, by being involved, paying attention, speaking up, and taking ownership of this, can really make a difference at the local level by using their voice and expressing their opinions about what it is they want their kids to be taught.
They certainly can, and that is great advice, Charmaine Yost. Thank you so much, Charmaine, for being generous with your time and joining us tonight. And as always, great to see you.
Thanks, Tony.
Folks, let me encourage you, go to the website, prayvotestand.org, resources there for you, an analysis of the American Families Plan, and prayerfully consider what Charmaine suggested. You need to be involved in your children's education, wherever they're at, whether public schools, private schools, need to be involved, but also prayerfully consider running for the school board and making a difference. During her 11 years in Washington, Missouri Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler has seen some crazy things, but a child care proposal that costs more than the federal government's operating budget has to be way up there at the top. Since 2010, Vicky has been fighting to protect taxpayers and keep U.S. spending down. She's been one of the brightest stars of the conservative caucus, tackling tough issues and speaking out when others, quite frankly, were too scared or weak to try. Vicky has a master's degree in education. She's taught school for 11 years. She's a mom, so I'm sure she has plenty to say about the president's new plan. Congresswoman Hartzler, thanks so much for joining us tonight at Pray Vote Stand.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Now, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when you look at all of the things that you've seen over the last decade, this has to be one of the most outlandish ideas in terms of its cost and the reach into the American family.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I used to teach home economics. Now they call it family and consumer sciences. And I taught my students how to budget. And they learned very quickly, and they understood that you can't spend more money than comes in. And they learned how to balance their budget. And we in Washington need to do the same thing. And under Joe Biden, this year alone, with all the packages he has proposed, he wants us to go further in debt by $6 trillion. First, it was on a coronavirus package, which really wasn't coronavirus. Less than 9% of that bill had anything to do with the vaccine or with helping people overcome the pandemic. But now he's proposed in the infrastructure bill, where less than 10% actually goes to roads and bridges. And now he's come out with this social infrastructure bill, which would add another $2 trillion of debt to our nation's debt. Last year, the average American had $92,000 worth of federal debt. And now we're going to add on top of that. But in addition to adding the debt, he wants to get the government, the federal government, more involved in our family lives and those family decisions, things that should be best left up to families, but certainly also, according to the 10th Amendment, would better be left to the states or to private companies. And he also wants to potentially expose us to further Obamacare subsidies for insurance companies without basic pro-life protections. So there is a lot to oppose in this bill, and I certainly will be.
You mentioned about the fiscal aspect of this and paying for it. Here's something that one of your colleagues on the other side of the Capitol, Senator Dick Durbin, had to say about funding this measure.
If we're going to have a program that is successful, whether it's broad or narrow, it has to be paid for in some respect. And I think that's what we're waiting for. I'm looking for the most progressive way that we can pay for this.
So what is the most progressive way to pay for this? I'm not quite sure I follow Mr. Durbin.
Well, I couldn't quite hear what he said, but if he's saying it's just a progressive way, what this does is increases taxes on capital gains. It does away with stepped up basis. And this goes at the heart of capitalism. It goes after entrepreneurs in our country. It continues to punish those who risk everything to go into business or to own a farm. And it's going to take more money from them, which ultimately is going to trickle down to everybody who's going to be harmed, with fewer jobs and fewer people be able to pass on the business or that family farm where people have worked for generations to make it, to start out with nothing, to invest their dollars, to work every day to try to pay their bills and make it. And then when they die or they pass it on to their kids, then the next generation is going to have to sell the business or the farm just to pay and send that to the federal government to pay for more government entitlement programs. And that's just wrong. That's an antithesis of everything that we stand for here in America. We are the land of opportunity where people should be able to risk and to work hard and be able to achieve that American dream. The government shouldn't come in and undermine that for social programs. And that's what this bill does.
Yeah, and be able to work and enjoy the fruit of their labor and not have the government take it from you. Sounds very similar to what one of your colleagues had to say, Senator Tim Scott. He had this to say in response to the president's proposal.
Tonight, we also heard about a so-called family plan, even more taxing, even more spending, to put Washington even more in the middle of your life, from the cradle to college. The beauty of the American dream is that families get to define it for themselves. We should be expanding opportunities and options for all families, not throwing money at certain issues because Democrats think they know best.
And that's exactly what this plan would do. It shows that the Democrats know what is best for American families. I want to encourage you to take a look at our analysis. You can find it at prayvotestand.org. Congresswoman, let me ask you this question. When you look at what is being proposed, what not just in this plan, you've touched on several that have been at the forefront of the debate since this administration came in. Is the American dream at risk under the policies and proposals of this administration?
Absolutely. It is creating a culture of dependency and rewarding people for behavior that is going to be contrary to their best interests as well as the overall economy of our government. For instance, we are paying more people right now under Biden's plan to stay home than to go to work. And I have businesses all over my district, and I know this is happening all over the country, who cannot find people to work. I had a constituent email me today saying they visited the local nursing home and they're in a crisis situation. They can't find people who will come in and take care of our elderly. We have hotels shutting down. We have other businesses at risk because our government is disincentivizing work. And we cannot have that. The land of opportunity embraces the concept of work. It is good to pursue your dreams, pull up your sleeves, work hard, make it a reality, and succeed. Anybody can succeed in this country. But if the government steps in and blocks that or starts subsidizing people for not working, then we're going to be in trouble down the line. We're going to not be the nation of innovation and coming up with new ideas. And we're going to become just like every other socialist government where the government takes care of you and we'll all go get our bag of rice and beans and just be happy about it. And that is not what made America great. So we have to oppose this. We have to help people give a temporary hand up if they need it. But as a former educator, I think we need to empower people through education to follow their dreams and encourage them to take that step they need in order to achieve that and not undermine it.
Congresswoman Hartzler, I want to ask you one final question. And you and I have had many conversations over the course of your tenure in Congress. And as I said at the beginning, no one fights more tenaciously than you do when it comes to the budget in fiscal responsibility, but you also fight for the heart and soul issues. And, you know, you're an educator, you're also a mom. you're a follower of Jesus Christ. When we look at what this is doing to the American family, further alienating child from parent, this is where we really need to push back. Speak to the parents of America, the importance of that relationship and them standing up and taking on the responsibility that God gave them to teach and train their children.
Right. Nobody is a better teacher for your child than you. And if we cede that to the government, then we are going to create the demise of our country. We look now at what is being taught in our schools, this woke mentality that, first of all, America isn't great, but that people should be ashamed of who they are, perhaps because of their skin color, or look at other people through the lens of race or ethnicity, instead of saying God created everyone equal and loves everyone equal, and we should respect and love our fellow neighbor, and we should work together, be unified in those goals that would benefit each other. And that's not what is being taught now. Plus, we are being taught that America is not great, that government is the one who takes care of you. And those are contrary to our biblical values. And so now more than ever, we need parents to stand up and to fight for what is right for their children's education. You never get a second chance to do that. And I worry for our children in our schools who are being taught year after year things detrimental to not only their own personal self-worth, but to the way that the country runs and how we should view each other. So get involved with the local school, run for school board, and have a say in what is taught there. Encourage those teachers, those brave teachers who are teaching the right things, and be very involved in your children's education, and be involved in what's going on in government. It does make a difference, but there are those out there who embrace socialism, who embrace those concepts, who don't have a biblical worldview anymore. And those of us who do, who understand that God made each one of us special and has a role and a place, including the role of personal responsibility and accountability to God in all that we do. We have to make our voices known too, and be a light and not put it under a bushel, but speak the truth in love. And as we do that, we can make a difference in our country, and I hope everyone will.
Some excellent advice, and I hope everyone who is listening will take that advice and act upon it. Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, can I pray for you before you have to go?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Father, I thank you for Vicky, and I thank you, Lord, for just how you've used her here in Washington on Capitol Hill. She's just done a remarkable job as the chair of the Values Action Team, fighting for what is right and what is true. And she does so, Lord, with compassion and kindness, but Lord, with firmness. And she's such a great example. But I pray for her and her colleagues. The Lord is, there is this onslaught of ungodly policy that is being pushed by this administration. And it is harmful, not only to our economy, which obviously some people pay a lot of attention to, but more importantly, Lord, it is harmful to families. It is harmful to the spiritual and cultural atmosphere and to the spiritual well-being of our nation. And so, Father, I pray that you would raise up those that will stand firm against this. And we pray, Lord, that the efforts to usurp the role of parents would fail, and that these efforts would not go forward. Give strength, give encouragement, give boldness to those members of Congress who are standing for that which is right, like Vicky. And we thank you for them, and we pray a blessing upon them tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tony.
Vicky, you're welcome. Thanks so much for being with us tonight.
You bet. Take care.
And folks, I want to share just a closing thought with you. When we look at, these programs, American Family Plan, look, God has a plan. He had the plan for the family. In fact, Paul talks about it over in Ephesians chapter 6, beginning at the very start of the chapter, verse 1. He says, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you and that you may live long in the land." And then it says this, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger." Then it goes on to say, but bring them up in the discipline and in the instruction of the Lord. I would suggest to you that one of the reasons we see so much anger in America today, in our politics, on our streets, in our entertainment, is that fathers, through their absence physically in some cases, in many cases, but also their emotional absence in not bringing up their children, disciplining them and instructing them in the ways of the Lord, that it has led to the anger that so many of our children and now young adults have in America. We've outsourced this responsibility to our schools, to whomever will, sometimes to no one. We just let the kids raise themselves. We as parents have to stand firm and execute the mandate we've been given to train up our children in the way that they should go. And when that is encroached upon, just as if you have a property and you put up no trespassing signs and someone is out poaching on your property, you have every right to have that person removed. Well, let me tell you, the federal government is trespassing on the territory of parents, and we need to remove them. They need to get off of our property, out of the area of our responsibility that God has given us. It's a solemn responsibility, but it's one of the greatest things anyone can ever do, and that is to be a parent to a child. So I encourage you, moms and dads, to not be taken in by the money that's being dangled out there by this administration, but make those choices to obey God, to take that responsibility and teach and train your children. Again, there are resources available for you at prayvotestand.org, an analysis of this bill, how much it would cost and what it would actually do. Again, you can find that at prayvotestand.org. Let me pray for you tonight as we close out our time. And again, I want to thank you for joining us each Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us right here praying. When we have the opportunity, we're going to vote, but we're always standing. Father, thank you for the opportunity you've given us tonight to be together. I pray for the parents of America. Lord, may we take the responsibility that you've given us to teach and train and raise our children, Lord, as a solemn responsibility. And I pray that, Lord, we would, as we would defend our property from those who would trespass and try to take something that's not theirs, may we be even more diligent and firm in telling the government to get their hands off our children and to back up, because they have no responsibility to take away the authority of parents to teach their children. They can't entice us. They can't provoke us. We will stand firm as you have told us to do. Raise up boldness and courage within the parents of America to tell this administration to take a hike when they want to trespass on our territory. Lord, turn their hearts. Now, I pray for the president. Turn his heart to righteousness, and the vice president. Turn their hearts away from the evil that they're pursuing. And if they do, and I pray that they would, as Proverbs says, that you turn the hearts of kings like you turn the rivers of waters. If they do that, if they yield to you, bless them. Prosper what they do. But if they resist it and they pursue that which is evil, Lord, I pray that they would not succeed. And I pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Folks, thanks for being with us tonight. And remember, keep praying. When you get the opportunity, vote, but always stand.